you guys. Sorry, I had to finish. So, I'm gonna make this like a part two because I don't want the video to get too long. It's now dark, and you guys know I'm chocolate, so bear with me. All right. So yeah, just finishing up. Where I left off. We have a lot of work to do. We really do have a lot of work to do. And this is why we need to be laser focused on ourselves. First ourselves, and then collectively ourselves. Okay? And that's going to take a lot of introspection. A lot of introspection. So I have talked about what I have seen on the continent, which is my new home. And so now I want to talk about the diaspora. We have a lot of changing to do as well. We have suffered a great deal, just as our brothers and sisters on the continent have, but just in different ways. And it's been perpetual for us in the West. They've never let up on us, on oppressing us, and abusing us, and murdering us. And so we have a lot of trauma. And really, a lot of us suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We suffer from that. A lot of us have a lot of built up anger, that comes out in many different ways in how we treat ourselves and treat one another. When I say ourselves, when we engage in unhealthy behaviors like, drinking and, smoking and, drugs. I'm talking about hard drugs, okay? So when we engage in that, and even with marijuana, it can become debilitating. That's not something that I engage in, but that also becomes debilitating. I've seen it. I've seen it in my own family. When you become totally dependent on something and you can't go a day without it or days without it, and it affects your behavior, then you have a problem, even if it is marijuana. And the word I was looking for is self-medicating. So, when we engage in, harmful self-medicating behaviors, that also adversely affects us. It affects us personally, it affects us individually, it affects us in our family life, and it affects us as a nation, because if one of us are broken, that is a breach in our nation, and so we really need to get into, healthy self-care. We need to really engage in, meditating and introspection, and really accepting, our part in our own demise. Okay. So as it relates to, the diaspora, like I said, we can be prideful we can be very prideful, and haughty, if you will. We don't like for people, for the most part, to tell us the truth about ourselves, and I've seen this in my family. It's a lot of dysfunction because people have created lies in their minds, and that now have become truth to them, but it is not. Whether it's your parent, whether it's your sibling, aunt, whomever it is, we all have these broken relationships, and it's a lot of times it is with our parents, and our siblings, our immediate family members, and we have to stop that. We have got to learn to accept our failures and our faults, because only then will we be able to do the work that's required to change it. And once we change our minds, we will then change the behavior that will then change the dynamics of our relationships with one another in a more positive way. And so, like I said, I've seen it. I've seen where parents who have done some things that may have adversely affected their children, and because they don't want to deal with it, they have like rehearsed lies. You know, they've just rehearsed lies to pacify themselves, and to prohibit themselves from facing, you know, their shortcomings. And so you cannot tell them that, you know, let's say a parent was abusive, you know, physically abusive. I've seen where, you know, parents are like, well, no, that never happened. You know, and the child or the adult, you know, is like, yes, it did. And they have proof. They have the scars, you know, and the parent is still like, no, that didn't happen. And I was the best parent, you know, to you. And it's just like, that's some crazy, like, that's some sick stuff right there, you know. And the child normally, and I don't say child, but the child, for lack of a better word, they, depending upon the personality of the child, they end up just totally secluding themselves, you know, and distancing themselves from that parent or their parents, or that family member. And then that relationship just remains broken for however many amount of years, and sometimes forever, until one perishes. And that's a shame. You know, we have got to be real first with ourselves. We have got to be real first with ourselves, okay? Trauma causes destructive behavior. You know, it causes destructive behavior. And again, we see that in our interactions, i.e. what I described what happened with, you know, my house. Clearly there is something going on, you know, within that person, some unresolved issues. And we all have our flaws, and it's important that we humble ourselves so that we can deal with those flaws and grow out of them, you know, grow out of them. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say, you know, as it relates to us, you know, and just how we treat one another, how we're treating even our children. It's just, we've got to get our stuff together. We're not acting in the way in which we were created. You know, we're not acting in the divine way in which we were created, in the royal way in which we were created. And it's time that we get our stuff together. Globally, wherever we are on this planet, collectively, we need to get ourselves together. And it first starts with being honest with ourselves and being willing to humble ourselves and recognize and accept the truth, so that then change can be ushered in, okay? And that way we can repair the cracks in the foundation of our nation and build a bigger, better, stronger, more dependable one. Okay, so that's what I have to say. And I wanted to share this, with you all. I, have a son, as you all know, and his father and I have been apart for quite some time, since he was a small child. And so I fully expected him to take care of his son, and without me having to micromanage it, without me having to force him, if you will. And so when we separated, when the relationship ended, I just said, okay, as long as he takes care of his son, I'm going to be, I'm going to be so happy, and I don't have any problems with him. I wish him well. It's just, please, I want to see that he will take care of his son. And so it started off whereas I would have to call, and I would call and I would say, he needs milk, because I was breastfeeding, but then the breastfeeding became painful because of a condition, that I have. And so at a certain point, I had to stop. So I would call and say, hi, he needs, milk or whatever it was, diapers or what have you. And, he would bring over, a can or two of milk and, a bag of diapers. And that was that. And it just got to a point where I'm just like, why do I have to call, this man to tell him what our son needs? He knows that we have a newborn. He knows that he needs to eat. He knows that he has to relieve himself. He knows that the essential things that he needs, he knows these things. So why do I have to week after week call him? And so it got to a point where I just said, I'm just not, I just want him to do what he's supposed to do, because I am now working and trying to support and keep this roof over our heads and going to school and all these things. And so I cannot micromanage, this man. And so it just got to a point where he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. He wasn't doing it consistently. It was very sporadic and it was very minimal, what he was doing. And about a year and a half, when our son was a year and a half, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was struggling, and I just said, I need help. I really need help. And I'm not able to get through this man. I'm not able to convince him, and I hate to say convince, but I'm just not able to get him to do what he was supposed to do. And I shouldn't have to do that. But, this is where I was mentally. And I said, I just really need some help. I really, really need help. And so at that point, I, went to the courts, and he was placed on child support. Now, the amount of support that he was paying, it did not even cover, and this per month, it did not cover even the child care. Child care back then for my son was $200 per week. Okay, they charge more for infants, and so and he wasn't at that point, because I stayed home for a year. So, but that's what it was 2. So he was like a toddler. So yeah. $200 per week. If we multiply that times 4, that's $800 USD per month. The payment was less than that. And so if he were paying it, it would at least help put a dent in that. That means everything else fell on me, whether it's his clothing and the diapers or the pull-ups and the feeding him. All of that, was on me. Healthcare, that was on me. And he just, for the most part, he did not, pay it. There was, he just started off being just very negligent. I would say for a few months when it first started, they were able to attach a garnishment. And then shortly after, he left that, he left that job. And then they weren't able to find anything on him. So months and months would go by, and just there would be no support. And then they would run his social and then find him somewhere, and they would threaten him with jail, and or tell him he had to pay a certain amount on his arrears and then he could go. So that happened twice. One time he was forced to pay a small lump sum, and then the other time they put him in a program where he would work during the day and then he would have to go back. And that was for about 3 months that, he did that. And I don't even think it was 3 months. So it probably was just about 60 days. And then years went by. It would be 7 years. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so as we were preparing for our transition here, through that all, I always kept the door open for him to have his visitation. Okay. Always. Called him and made sure that he made it to his graduations. Just always kept that door open. And so otherwise, just before we were transitioning here, it was on my spirit. I was just like, I'm just gonna, because he's not paying it anyway. It had been years and years, you guys, and I had gotten nothing. So I was just like, my son is nearly like an adult, your son's about to be 16. And so at the time he's 15, and I was just like, okay, I've done it by myself practically all this time. I'm just going to take this guy off of child support. I want to see if he will do the right thing. Now, of course, he did not have a pattern of doing the right thing. And so we know the saying, if people show you who they are, believe them. But, I said everybody deserves a second chance. And so I said, I'm going to take him off, and I want to see if he'll do the right thing. But then I was kind of teetering and tottering, as the mind got involved, and I was just like, as the thinking got involved, and I was just like, I don't know, if I want to do this. But again, it makes sense. He's not doing anything anyway. So I kind of just left it alone for a while, and then he started calling me because I had shared with him that that's what I was thinking about doing. And he then started calling me and saying, do this, please. I'm not well. He was having some health issues and he needed to get the stress off of him, what have you. So I said, I don't mind doing this as long as you take care of your son. And he's his only child, you guys. And the only grandchild on his side of the family. So I said, I just want you to take care of your child. Please just take care of your son. And he said, oh, I will. You're going to see. You're going to see. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. You're going to see. I said, okay. So I signed the paperwork and I said, okay, fine. Took him off. Now, we've been here on the continent for over a year and a half. Or almost a year and a half. And nothing. Okay. Except a couple of hundred, and that was as of recent. So we had went nearly a year and a half with nothing. So some little pocket change as of recent, and that's by my son having to ask. It was not willingly given. So I say all of that to say that type of behavior, it's very deceitful. You promised, you made a verbal contract with me to take care of your child. I, trusted that you would do so without an established record or pattern, of you being responsible. But I gave you the benefit of the doubt. And you said you would, and you didn't. That's not okay behavior. And we cannot reestablish ourselves. We cannot operate in truth when our behavior is deceitful, when our speech is deceitful, when we're engaging in irresponsible behaviors, and we have an irresponsible mind and heart. I don't understand parents, whether you're male or female, okay? They're obviously, you're still breathing, so you're feeding yourself, you're taking care of yourself, but you don't see to it that your child is also well taken care of. That's not upstanding behavior. That should not be tolerated. Those are the types of behaviors that we just have to check in our community. And we have to let it be known that this is not acceptable behavior in our community. I know our ancient ancestors did not allow this. They did not allow, the men to not take care of their families, and vice versa, mothers, and to be irresponsible mothers and to leave their children, because women, you've got some problems too, moms. I know I have a sister who owns a school, a daycare, right? I don't want to call it a daycare because she actually does teach. She really prepares them for elementary school. And so it's a preparatory school. And so, she when we talk, she tells me how, okay, so they're open from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And she tells me that, it's the mothers, because unfortunately there's a lot of us just doing this thing, on our own. But, she says it's mothers primarily, but just even some fathers, and our people don't want to pick up their children. They're late picking up their children. Okay, consistently, any type of, when they're out, when school is out, or when she knows that also, the parents may have some time. She's like, they're always bringing they're bringing them there, or they'll call her, can you keep, because she takes the kids home too. She loves children like me. And she's like, they're just always pushing off their children, and she's like, I remember how you just could not wait to come and get your son. And I said, because it's been such a privilege and honor to me to be a mother. Like, it's the best gift that I've received. It really, truly is. Even in the struggle, and oh my goodness, in my book, I will talk about the struggle. Even in the struggle, I've been through some horrible times. He was the light, and that kept me going, and just looking at him and seeing him, it just brought me joy. The troubles just dissipated, when I would see him, or I pick him up and his face would just light up and he's, Mama's here, So, it's the most beautiful gift, being a parent, having a mini copy of yourself. And so, so I say all of that to say, if we want true change, and if we want to lift ourselves up and re-erect ourselves, okay, in an upright way, and display the qualities and the characteristics and the behaviors of royalty, of nobility, then we're going to have to eradicate the low vibrational characteristics, first of all, mindset, characteristics, and behavior. So the lies, the cheating, the stealing, the scamming, the scheming, the deceit, the breaking of contracts. We're going to have to stop doing that. Okay? And those are the things that will not be tolerated in my community. It just will not be tolerated. We have to be upstanding. We have to renew our minds so that it is reflective in our behavior. You know, we have to heal ourselves, you guys, and we've got to get ourselves together. It's time. The time is now. The time is now, and it starts with ourselves. And I always tell my son, if you cannot be honest with yourself, then you cannot never be honest with anyone else. Always be humble enough to see and accept the truth, even if it is relating to yourself and your behavior, okay? Because it can only make you better, and it can only help you. That's why they say the truth shall set you free. So we have to be a nation that stands upon truth. Okay, until next time, you guys, be good.